Hey everybody, welcome to etrailer.com. I'm Bobby, and today we're taking a look at the Pewag all-square snow tire chains with cams here on our 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee. So this can be a pretty decent way of giving yourself some traction control. The one thing I will say about it though, because of our limitations of our wheel and how close we are to our front struts, we're going to be limited to only keeping this on the back wheels here of your Jeep Grand Cherokee. You are going to need yourself a Class S compatible chain for those front tires. So if that's something you're looking for, I highly recommend the Konig XG-12 Pros. Those are a really nice way to stay nice and low profile, but giving you the traction control that we're looking for on those front tires. Now that can be really important for some because that's where a lot of our steering is going to be coming from that front. But again, we are on the four-wheel drive here on the Jeep Grand Cherokee, so this is still really nice to start getting some traction to our back wheels. You can see here we have some very, very thick chains here today, 7 millimeters thick in fact, and you can see it's almost a whole hand height for me of actually getting up there. Very, very tall, doing a great job of biting through that snow and that ice. And to that end, we are going to have a ladder style chain here today. So what that's doing, kind of creating these hills and valleys, right, that we're seeing. So you are going to be feeling that as you go down the road, and because these are so large, you're definitely going to feel it as you drive. It's definitely going to be an impact. You're going to feel it. You're going to probably hear it too. But to that end, really, really nice traction we're getting, right? Going to have no trouble biting through that snow and that ice. Now, if you find yourself where there's maybe not a lot of, weather elements on the road, then maybe something a little smaller might be better, just because, it's not going to be that smooth of a ride, especially for highway driving. You're really going to feel it. Now, one thing I do like about it though, these cam tighteners make it really easy to make sure we're taking all that slack out. You might notice we have some rubber tensioners on here. You're going to see later on in the install video why we recommend them. It's not going to be 100% necessary for these chains on our tire size specifically today, but it could be for some out there. But we'll break that down a little bit later. We are seeing nickel manganese alloy construction here on these chains, which you love to see because that means they're going to be a lot more resistant to corrosion than some of that low carbon steel that we might be used to. Now, still a little maintenance is going to go a long way. Spraying these down when not in use, getting those harsh chemicals that are on the road off of there is going to go a long way of making sure they're ready the next time we need them. But the install really doesn't take too much time at all. Before we get into it though, just a few caveats. As I mentioned today, we do have a specific tire size here. Let's make sure we're putting our own tire size into the fit guide at etrailer.com. That way we're getting the right size that fits our vehicle at home. But today, I am going to be working on two 65/60 R18 tires. And like I said earlier, we are kind of limited to only putting this here on our rear wheel. If you want something for the front, we do have a couple more options available here at etrailer.com. But let's go ahead and see how we can get this installed. To begin our installation, what you want to do is lay out your chain just like so. What we're looking for here, any kind of kinks or binds that might have been made inside the bag. One little tricky thing that chains like to do, sometimes they'll flip themselves in like this, and then you don't quite know what's going on. So all you need to do, bring them out the other way. If you're having a weird kind of bind up in your chains, that's usually what's holding you up. But what we're looking for here too, of course, is making sure our cams are towards the outside of our vehicle, because we're going to need those to actually tighten this up, and to make sure our hard points of contact are pointed up and away. Why I like making sure that's there, at least at first, is because these could be little hard edges and we don't want that puncturing or damaging our wheel in any way. But then we need to bring ourselves to the middle. Once that's all laid out, we got no binds. Bring yourself to the middle of your chain. And what I like to do as well is kind of take my arm just like so. And what I'll end up doing is kind of winging out my arms like this. And why I do that, we got some nice rims, I'm sure. We don't want to be doing any damage to them. So slide those guys on the underside. I will say these are a little bit of heavier chains, and just kind of laying them like so can be nice. That way we're not crashing into those rims. Now I'm just kind of seating them up here. I can see I have a little bit of extra chains towards my rear, so I'm just kind of shifting them across, making sure that that bottom connection is where I want it to be. Same with this side. Again, I can see I have a little bit of extra. I'm just going to shift them over just a little bit at a time. And while I'm doing that as well, I'm making sure that my cross chains are staying perpendicular to themselves. If you find yourself doing this weird angle, doing a little something wrong, try to fix that back as well, and just pull it in line. But now we need to bring ourselves to the other side of our vehicle to make, or I'm sorry, on the other side of our wheel to make our first connection. We're gonna grab our extra chains here, and we have a hook today it looks like I'm gonna try to be able to get it to about the 3rd chain from the end. And one thing I will say, not too much room to work in here inside the Jeep Grand Cherokee. So if you found yourself on the side of the road, already gonna be laying in that snow and that ice, which is gonna be no fun. So of course, maybe putting this on before we get going is always gonna be helpful. But I'm just gonna try to make this connection now, just like so. Later on, we're probably gonna need to come back and actually snip this extra chainage. Now, what I'll say about that though, make sure you actually have a confirmed fit before we do any modifications, but now we need to bring ourselves to the front of our wheel. Here in the front, we need to make our other connection. I'm gonna try to go down to the 3rd chain here. See if I don't have the gumption to get it there. And I just might have it, but it's definitely gonna be a tight squeeze for me. See if I can't get any of that extra slack. And I don't like how my cam is sitting over here, actually. That's no bueno. See if I can't, there we go. That's what was holding me up. So always double check those. Sometimes they like to get messy with you. Now I can definitely get to that 3rd chain. Making sure I can get that guy on. Sliding the extras out of the way. Getting that put on. Now we are still gonna be a little loose again. Later on, once we've confirmed our fit, we might be taking these guys off. That way they're not rattling around, getting caught on anything. But now we just wanna double check all of our cross chains, make sure they're in the right position. And now we need to also grab our included cam lever tool. This is gonna allow us to tighten up all of our cams. So we simply take it, tighten it up just like that, and repeat the process all the way around our wheel. And just like that, we are nice and tight. I'm really not seeing too much slack here. I like that this is taking it out. Now, one thing I might suggest as well, though, is gonna be a rubber tensioner. We just have just a little bit of play here. Let me go ahead and grab one of those and see how good of a job they do. Now, I will say, maybe we could take one more chain in the back out, and these wouldn't be absolutely necessary. As it stands even today, I think these are gonna get the job done, but if you wanna make sure you're staying nice and tight on your wheel, getting as much traction as you can, and making sure none of these cams are too loose to start walking themselves out, this tensioner could be a nice pickup. But what we need to do with this is just start placing it here on our chains. You wanna try to place somewhere not on your cross chain. That way you get a little bit of this action here, and that's gonna take out that last little bit of slack we have. And much like a lug nut here, we wanna be going across, distributing this force as much as we can, and just going across from each other here until we can get that. One other thing to keep in mind, always wanna have those hooks pointed away from the rubber of your tire, of course. And it looks like I might be able to get this guy just one more across. So do have a little bit of a weird positioning just because we're trying to account for those cams, but that's done a really good job of taking out that last little bit of slack. Again, maybe not necessary for everybody out there, but I do like how it's just one more measure to make sure we're nice and secure. But just like that, we are installed. I think that's about a wrap. Well, as we saw, that install doesn't take too much time. The thing is, though, you are going to find yourself on the underside of your vehicle, and if you do have snow and ice on the ground, that can definitely be new fun. So maybe putting this on inside before we actually get going is going to be great. The one thing I'll say about that, though, these are very thick chains. I would just be a little hesitant to be 100% secure of driving this on my garage and my driveway. So we may be a little limited of where we can actually get these put in place if you're worried about your floors. But I really do like how the cams work. I'm a really big fan of cams just because they take a lot of that slack out, as we saw. These tensioners, again, maybe not 100% necessary, but it could just be a good way of giving us that peace of mind that we're looking for. Well, I think this is going to do an excellent job of getting through heavy-duty snow and ice. Could be a little greater for kind of mud applications as well if you're trying to have a little fun in the Jeep Grand Cherokee. But overall, just a decent way of giving us some traction control. I think that about does it, though, for our look here today at the Pewag all-square snow tire chains here on our 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee. I'm Bobby. Thanks for watching.